this is the Chapter 7 and 8 warm-up, and this is going to be located on your page 15, okay? And so I want to check details on this. So I want you following along and make sure you've got all the details of how to do this. On your quiz, you will have basically 2 of these kinds of things to do on your quiz. All right, so first of all, we have this situation where we are predicting the playoff points from the regular season points. So that's the first thing that you want to do. The year did not matter, so that was not information that you put into your calculator into Stat Edit. All right, so then the rest we went into our calculator and we went to Stat Edit, and we put this first list into L1 and this second list into L2. We put the y's into L2. All right, when we did that, and you went and calculated the equation of the line, stat, calc, equation of the line, notice that you put the playoff points, predicted playoff points. You have to have that there. I did 2 decimals here for the slope, and then times the x value, which is the regular season points, plus 8.88. So those are the numbers that I used. Now, I wrote on your quiz some information about how many decimal places, or if you should go to whole numbers. So do pay attention to if I told you to go to 2 decimal places or whole numbers, and like I said, I wrote that right on the quiz on that particular side. So this is the equation we're going to be using. Now, interpret the slope. So that's coming from the song. For every 1 increase in the x, the predicted y, it does this. Interpret the slope. 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 So here, for every point increase in the regular season average, that's the x, the predicted playoff average increases by 0.54 points. Okay? So that's what the slope is doing. For every 1 increase in these regular season tickets, the predicted playoff increases 0.54 points. All right, now interpret the y-intercept. That was another song. Interpret the y-intercept. It happens when the x is 0. The predicted y is this, and it often does not make sense. All right, so here, when the average points per game is in the regular season is 0. So when the regular season points are 0, that's when the x is 0, the predicted playoff points is 8.88, because this 8.88 is your y-intercept, is 8.88 points. Okay? All right. Interpret the y-intercept. It happens when the x is 0. The predicted y is this. All right? And if it doesn't make sense, that's okay. Sometimes it does not. All right. Now determine the correlation coefficient and interpret it in context. The correlation coefficient is the R value that shows up on your calculator when you calculate the equation of your line. You need to make sure that you have these diagnostics on. And remember, you went to mode and you checked to make sure that these diagnostics down here were on. Okay? Or you went to second catalog and you went all the way down to the letter D in the alphabet until the diagnostics are turned on. So if your calculator is not giving you that, then you need to turn the diagnostics on. And then whenever you do your stat calculate number 4, you then will get this R value here. You are not going to use the R squared, just the R value. All right, so this one is talking about there is a strong, there is a weak, positive or negative linear correlation between X and Y. linear between x and y. So in this case, a 0.53 is a moderate number. Remember, 0.0 to 0.3 is weak. Somewhere in the 0.4 to the 0.6 is moderate, and 0.7 to 0.9s are strong. So here we have, there is a moderate, positive, linear relationship or correlation between the regular season and the playoff points. Alright, so those are pretty much the 3 songs and the 3 sayings that you have to know. Next is filling in the blanks and filling out equations. So here, predict the average playoff points for a regular season, 17.6. So you just plug that 17.6 in, and then you got your predicted points. Now here, remember that the residual is the actual y minus predicted y. So the actual y minus the predicted y. In this case, your predicted y was this number, 18.38. And you can get these actual values from the chart above. So I would come up here to the top. It's saying a regular season points of this number here. That is the x value. That means up here in the top, right here it is, guys. This is the 17.6 x value, and that means what actually occurred. This is the y, actual y of 18.2. So the actual y was 18.2 minus the predicted y of 18.38. So my residual is negative 0.18 points. Alright, next, this is another predict the playoff points for the regular season. So I am putting, this is the x value of 19.4. I put into this equation and I predict the predicted playoff points is 19.36. Now, look at the chart to see what actually happened. At an x value of 19.4. So come here to the chart to see what actually happens. Here it is right here. There is the actual x of 19.4. So the actual y is 21.8. So I'm going to use that actual y, and I'm going to use it of 21.8 minus the predicted, and therefore I get 2.44 points. Okay, remember that I very well could ask you to do something else. I could, on one of these problems, ask you to do something like what you had done on, let's say, looking here on your page 14 that you did. And in this case, on page 14, let me find one that shows that. I'm looking for one where I gave you here's the next page, because I do know that on the quiz, here we go. This is page 14. Okay, so look here at questions like D and E. Okay, let's look at D and E. I give you the residual of 3.8. That means you are putting 3.8 for the residual. Okay? The question is, what is the actual y? Well, guess what? You can figure out the predicted y always from the equation. You put the 62 degrees into the prediction equation to get the predicted y, and so then that is what you filled in here. So you had the predicted y, you were given the residual, and then you solved for the actual y that was left. So that will happen on some of your quiz problems as well. In this case, 66 degrees was the x that you plugged in to get the predicted consumption. The residual was negative 5.4. So your actual y minus the predicted y value you got equals this residual of negative 5.4. And then you solved for that y. Alright, so there's those problems. You have two sides of the quiz. There's similar questions on the front and the back. And so just make sure that you remember your songs, sayings. You remember to use the words, you know, and the prediction signs, predicted consumption. Use your words, income, consumption, like we did on this page. And then use your equation, residual equals actual minus predicted. All right, good luck on your quiz.